Oi, pessoal, tudo bem? Eu sou a Catarina Moraes e hoje eu tô aqui com a Corinne Bailey Rae. Hi, Corinne, how are you? I wanted to congratulate you on your work on Black Rainbows. And to start off, can you explain what is the building in Chicago, Stony Island Arts Bank, that inspired your album?
The Stony Island Arts Bank is a 100-year-old bank on the south side of Chicago. The south side of Chicago used to be a very black, middle-class area, a prosperous area. But over the years, it's been defunded. It's become a very poor area. There's some difficult issues in the south side. There's a lot of problem with housing. There's drug addiction. There's some gun violence. This is a very difficult area. And the bank went from being a well-used savings and loans bank to kind of falling out of use, and eventually it was closed. Mm-hmm. It's closed for a long time. The basement was flooded. And many of the buildings on Stony Island have been pulled down by the city because they're too expensive to maintain. So Stony Island looks quite flat these days.
Yeah.
But then the Arts Bank is this big, Greco-Roman building from the 1920s.
Yeah.
And an artist walked past the bank and said, the city was going to pull it down. And he said, no, we shouldn't allow this building to be destroyed. It's part of our community. So he bought it from the city and saved it for the community.
Yeah.
So now, instead of being filled with money, it's filled with art.
Wow.
It's filled with paintings and sculptures and drawings. It's full of archive as well, a place of archive. So it has all the books that were ever collected and submitted to the Johnson Publishing Company. He did Ebony magazine and Jet magazine, which were they were like Life magazine for Black people in America. So they covered all the big subjects. It started in 1943. So they house all these amazing photographs, glamorous pictures, entertainers, Aretha Franklin, Chaka Khan, all of that, but also everyday blackness, teachers and bankers and doctors and people putting up on art exhibitions in their homes and, everything that was happening in politics.
Yeah, yeah.
All of the civil rights, everything was in Ebony magazine. So they have 26,000 books there that they've collected. They also have these difficult objects from America's past, derogatory objects, which someone has collected to kind of take out of circulation. And they also have all of the records that were collected by Frankie Knuckles, who was a big house music DJ in Chicago.
Yeah.
So it's this place of sort of play and fun and glamour, but also difficult history, all together in the bank. When I visited, I was so inspired by the various stories, opening a magazine, opening a newspaper article, opening a drawer and seeing figures, photographs. When I left the building, I just found myself writing poems and songs and wanting to know more about the stories in the bank.
Yeah. And you also mentioned in an interview recently that Thaser Gates, I don't really know. Yeah, Thaser Gates.
Yeah,
you
right.
mentioned him as like being a Willy Wonka and you were like the Charlie. And I thought it was such an amazing analogy. And I wanted you to elaborate this analogy because what did he impact in your artistic journey?
Theaster has had a huge effect on my artistic journey. He's many things. He studied business and he's a ceramicist, so he makes pop.
Yeah.
But he also makes art out of things that have been discarded or thought of as not useful. I'll give you an example of one. A Black-owned hardware store in Chicago just closed in the last few years, and it was kind of a shame. It's called True Value. And it was a shame because it was one more business that couldn't fight against the giants, the giant corporations.
Yeah.
So he got this building. He took down the walls on the outside. He put it in a glass box, and he said, "This is art."
Yes, wow, that's
now
amazing.
you can go to this building. You can go to this thing, and it looks like how you'd go to a museum and see a piece of artwork in glass.
Yeah.
But it's a hardware store, and it's screws and saws and all sorts and. That's how his mind works. And then he's DJing, when people are going and gather, and it becomes a space for people to gather.
Yeah.
So part of his practice is finding buildings that are going to be torn down and saying, no, this is an important community building, let's save it. So there was a big school that he saved, there was a big church that he saved, St. Lawrence, and now that's a place to incubate businesses for people, low-income people and Black people.
Yeah.
He's so he's clever in that way. But yeah, the Willy Wonka thing for me was that he has all these buildings. He would just take me around and open the door, and he would open the door to one of them, loads of pots and African masks made out of clay, and he'd open the door to another, and it would be a wood workshop with all these people milling all these huge pieces of wood to make furniture. Or you would open another door and it would lead through to a garden, a place that used to be a wasteland. That they planted with grass and there's a stage, and it's a place for community to gather. And so really, for me, it made me think, oh, there's so much you can do. There's so much you can do if you call yourself an artist.
Yeah.
And I thought, the smallest thing at least is in your musical expression, to be able to really go to the extremes and not think, is this a single? Will they play it on the radio? Will people like this? It's 3 minutes long. That's just limiting yourself so much. And other people are so good at doing that. Other people are the their journey in pop music. There's some amazing 3-minute pop music, songs about love. But I wanted to do something. I've done work like that. I wanted to do something different.
Yeah, and you really did something different. And I thought it was really fascinating, your connection to these historical objects that you saw. And the song Erasure is a very a visceral response to Ed Williams' collection. And I thought it was very interesting when you talked about this story, because it's a very strong and thought-provoking song. So can you tell us more about the influence and the inspiration and the significance of this Ed Williams collection that you saw?
The Ed Williams collection was collected by Ed Williams, who was a black and Chinese banker. And he would go to these yard sales and flea markets and find these problematic objects that were just for sale. There were objects, some of them from the slavery era in America, but some of them from after that. It seemed like while there were no longer enslaved people, the objects that people liked, that some people had in their homes, were derogatory. They might show a cookie jar, but it might be in the shape of a stylized black woman. Maybe her face was made into a mask with big red lips and big white googly eyes, and a hair wrap and a broom in her hand. It seemed like whenever there was a movement of black people in the real world to be free, in objects, in postcards, in adverts, there was still this limitation of this is what you can do and this is what you look like, and it was sort of a cartoon version of blackness. So that connection was really fascinating to me, and I would look through it and see the same things over and over. I see the erasure of black childhood. Somehow black children weren't seen as innocent and pure and lovely and to be protected. They were seen as dangerous and criminal and adult, and they were sort of shown in sexy situations or criminal situations. I see the erasure of black femininity, that black women weren't presented as gentle or beautiful, that they were always shown as tough, and they were always shown as cleaning, cooking, serving, that they didn't have any needs. They were almost part of the furniture, like you would have a refrigerator and a cooker. You would also have a housekeeper, and they were sort of in the same category. And I'd also see the erasure of black personhood. There were still in the collection postcards and photographs that had circulated around America of bodies that had racial violence on them, so postcards of lynching. People would make postcards of them, and I would look on the back of the postcards, and the postcards would be, "Dear Mum and Dad, just arrived in Georgia. The peach trees smell beautiful. I can smell them through the train window." And there's such a disconnect between what's written on the back and what was written on the front.
Of course.
But, these people aren't being seen as human beings, and so I wanted to write a song about them. And the song came out as Erasure. They tried to erase you, they tried to eviscerate you, hide behind the curtain, make you forget your name. It sounds like a very harsh song, and it is aggressively hard with the guitars. But also the chorus said they tried to erase you. Right. So even when I'm looking through this collection, I'm looking at a photograph of black children, under 5, and it might have a racist tag on the bottom. It might say, "All coons look alike to me." But I'm looking at the photograph and seeing just very beautiful black children. So there's kind of a truth that the people who are making it are trying to hide, but it still is evident in its presentation. So, the erasure was not complete, it was not possible, but it was attempted, and I think it's important to look at that.
I think that's the whole, I think that's why I found it very like impactful. Your whole album, it's remembering like racial history and associating it with art. And it's not only, of course, you saw it in the United States because it was in Chicago, but I think it can be projected all around the world. And it's a very, like, it has a really significant impact on our culture nowadays. And I wanted to dive into, Put It Down, because it's also such a powerful song. I had to write down some songs and I was like, I can't choose one. It's so hard like to ask what is your question because it's so amazing. But I wanted to hear you talk about like what shaped this song, the Put It Down, and could you talk a little bit more about that one too?
Put It Down came about because the bank itself is not just a place of archive of objects, but it's also an active place. So when I was in for my residencies, I'd be doing some research and I'd turn around and there'd be a group of 9 women having a prayer meeting. Wow. Or I'd be working upstairs and some avant-garde, singing group were walking around and making all these weird sounds. And one night there was a party. It was kind of a Wednesday night, and people were invited from all over the local community and from uptown, art types and young people, and also people who just had to walk around the corner to go. It was a free party, but everyone who came to the party had to walk past this vessel that the actors made, this big pot, big black pot. And inside, they wrote on a piece of paper their woes. They wrote down the things that were bothering them, the things that were weighing them down, the things that were their burdens. And I did it too. I had things that were at the top of my mind that were just heavy on me, distracting, and I wrote them down, folded it up, put it in the pot. And then we just went to this party. And the DJ was called Dwayne Powell, and we just danced and danced. We danced to Frankie Knuckles' archive, to all this house music. And it was great. I love dancing. I don't really dance in my videos, but in real life, I like to dance and, that dance like no one's watching. And so it was 3 or 4 hours of this dance party. And at the end, they set fire to the things inside the pot.
Wow.
And all the woes went away. But I felt in that experience that the thing that I'd written down had gone. The weight of it was never the same on me ever again after that. So I'm a really big believer in being able to dance out your woes, be able to bring into the physical the things that are up here, take it from being up here and get it into your body and get it out. And that's what came about in Put It Down, putting down your burden, putting down the things that hold you back, the things, the negative things that you tell yourself, you can shake them out of your body, you can put them down.
Yeah.
That's how the song came about.
That's amazing because it's a very strong song and I really also loved it. And the song I also wanted to talk about is He Will Follow You With His Eyes, because that song is a little bit interesting because it's like a female perspective, and it gave me a very good, like, I got little goosebumps when I heard it. And I wanted to know, because you're a woman in the music industry, and I wanted to know, what do you like to see, like what would you like it to change in the music industry? Because I think we're still fighting some battles, and we still have hard like things to do and places that we can go, but we won't. And we don't. But I wanted to know from you, like, that song really caught me, like, in that female energy, that type of song. So I wanted to know.
Well, thank you. I found some beauty products in the bank. They were from the 50s and 60s, and they're very elegant. They were illustrated by a black illustrator called Charles Dawson. And they had really romantic titles, so if you bought a perfume, it might be called Follow Me Boy or Look Me Over. And the adverts would say things like, his eyes will follow you across the room. I thought about the 50s, in America and all over the world, that thing of, if you're a woman, the only way to kind of get power or get your man would be, the way that you could present yourself, your hair, your makeup, your dress, your perfume, that could somehow bring a man to you, that you wouldn't have to use any words.
Yeah.
It was important not to use any words, right?
Yeah, that's
sort
true.
of try and get them to come to you. And I thought how powerless that kind of was. But yeah, when I'm talking about that song on stage, I think, have we really moved that far forward from that? Because there is so much still a feeling in femininity. I have a friend who's trans and a dancer, and they were talking about, we talked together about what it is to kind of put on the feminine. When you wake up in the morning, are you a woman enough until you've like got your bra and got your lipstick and done your eyes and the eyeshadow and the hair and the signs that are meant to be signaling like I am a woman. And without those things, are you as much of a woman? Are you feminine still? Are you beautiful still? So, I mean, I think in terms of the music industry, the thing I'd most like to see is just more. I'd like to see more women writing. I would feel like, you know, you think, oh, it's half and half when you put on, you know, a music video channel. You see all these really good-looking 20-year-old women, but then when you look at this song credits, there's often kind of men behind the scenes, you know, pulling the levers. And I think I'd really like to know, you know, what young women think and feel outside of having an older, you know, a 40-year-old man kind of moderate that or say,
of course,
more sexy, maybe more playful, maybe more, you know. So that's one thing. And I also think, you know, hearing the voices of older women. It's important too, you know. I think that's really important for young people. I think there's a big reason why there's so much pressure on young people, and it's because we're basically telling them that their life is over when they reach 35. So you finish school at 18, and then you've got a few years, you know, you've got, 17, 18 years to kind of make everything happen.
Yeah, that's true.
And after that, you're going to just be put on the scrap heap. Your life is over. And I think that's so much, you know, it's so much pressure, and it's just not true. You know, that life is so rich and there's so much after being, you know, 35. It's like everything sort of carries on. You learn more, and there's more wisdom, there's joy, and you're still alive. You can still go out dancing, and you can still have dreams. You can still change your career. You can still, you know, meet someone new. And I think all of that is that sort of beauty and youth obsession is a kind of disease of our society, you know. Like,
it's kind of like an illness. Like
it is an illness that sort of, and it's really kind of fear of death.
Yeah.
But I mean, what we should enjoy is aging, because aging is the opposite of death. You know, it's like, so the fact that you're still here and being able to do it, but you kind of look a bit more pulled down. It's like, you know, that's just life. I would rather look a bit more shriveled up and still be alive. You know, so I hope to have a long life and age disgracefully. You know, and I'll still be making music because my value is not on how nice I look in a crop top. You know, and it's like that needs to be a message for lots of 20-year-old women. It's like, you look really hot in a crop top right now, but don't bank too much on that, because you have a lot to say, and you know, you might not still be in that crop top in a few years' time.
That's an amazing message, I think, to pass, because, and I also, like, when you were talking, I remembered you began in the music industry very like early, and I remember in an interview I saw you said, like, imagine if I started here, like in the Black Rainbows album, referring to that, because in the perspective of being like having like being more brave, or more free, actually, not brave, but pushing boundaries more. And I wanted to ask you, how would you describe the evolution of your sound from the beginning to where you are now?
I think that I've just grown in terms of giving myself permission, I guess, to really be myself. You know, I love my first album, and in a way that was a response to, you know, I used to be in an indie band and a punk band. I'd always be shouting over loads of guitars. So when I got in the studio for the first ever time to make that record, it was amazing for me to put headphones on and really hear my voice and hear all this texture. And I thought, oh, I don't have to sing loud at all. I could do it like I'm whispering. I could do it like I'm telling a secret, which I loved. You know, almost that the whole record is like,
you were speaking so lightly.
You know, it's a sweetness to it, which I absolutely love. And then I feel like the C is a response to that, of like, but I also still love all this indie music, and I love guitar, and I play, and I have now this heaviness in my life that I want to talk about, and then I guess with the Heartbeats and Whispers, I was trying to stretch myself, and I was learning more about jazz, and you know, I wanted to work with some musicians in America that had inspired me, some soulful musicians. I think I just I want to bring it all in, or I should say, I want to sort of push the boundaries out, so that when we get to play live, we can play these different styles, and hopefully people are still, you know, enjoying it, or still in their seat, you know, still in the room. So I'm trying to keep a bit of freedom, I guess.
And this album, it does like mix a lot of like genres, and you explore lots of like comparing to your first and like second maybe album, that you have like a a little like away. Like this album is like it's amazing because it brings like a lot, and it passed your emotion. Like we felt it when we heard it, so it's really amazing. So, and I also wanted to ask, you had like the opportunity to collaborate with amazing artists like Herbie Hancock and Marcus Miller, and I wanted to know if you had like a collaboration that standed out. Like you were like mind blown by the collaboration, maybe.
I mean, definitely every time I get to play with Herbie Hancock really blows my mind. I mean, I am not a trained musician, right? I played violin when I was in an orchestra when I was a child, but my guitar playing is that's just what I find in the moment, and I don't know what it's all called, and I'm just getting by as a guitarist, but that's fine because I think of myself as a punk. Like, that's okay that I do that, and I love to write. I'd much rather sit down and write a song than practice a scale, which is why I'm not very good at guitar. But Herbie, playing with these jazz legends, I just feel like it's almost like a spiral, like an updraft, and it sort of takes you up on their skill. So I find myself doing things like singing in a way I could never sing, or performing in a way I could never perform. And we played with Herbie's very dear friend Wayne Shorter, the great jazz saxophone player.
You played with... Wow, that's amazing. Wayne Shorter,
And he did a solo on Like a Star, and I remember sort of playing my guitar and sort of just being caught up in this spiral of sound and thinking, I don't know, it was a transcendent experience for me. I feel very lucky that I have lots of those in music, but this really was one where I thought, I am outside of time in this moment. Like, if I was to die now, all would be well. I felt like I was in this in-between sort of state, just one with the universe. It was really like that, I mean, lots of people find that in different things, that they like partying or drugs or extreme sports or whatever it is, but I find it from music, and I'm glad I get to get that through music.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your album again and again and again. If I could, I would congratulate you all the time. But now that I have the opportunity, it's an amazing project, and it's really inspiring to see. And I really hope that everyone loves it as much as I do. I had such a hard time finding out which song I'm going to ask, because I wanted to know all the stories, to be honest. And it's such a pleasure to have you here and to get to talk to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your time. Thanks to the radio station for giving space to such a different project. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Corinne. Bye bye. Então é isso, pessoal. Essa foi a entrevista com a Corinne Bailey Rae. Não esquece de curtir, compartilhar o vídeo, seguir a gente e ativar as notificações. Tchau, tchau e até a próxima.